For Off the Block, I'm Vinny Lopes, and we are now joined by Princeton head coach Sam Shweisky. However, has a little bit of a different role this summer. He's the head coach of the U.S. boys national team. And coach, pretty busy weekend for you. You were able to narrow down your roster to 12 players. Talk about the team that you're going to be taking to Cuba for the Norseca Championships in a couple weeks.
Well, first I got to say just thank you to the 24 guys that came out here to Cal State Fullerton for this training block. It was probably the most grueling and intense and just rapid training session we've ever had to have since I've been involved with USA Volleyball to make these kind of cuts. 24 guys came in Friday night. We trained Friday night, twice on Saturday, twice on Sunday, and we had to make 8 cuts Sunday night. And just the guys worked so hard, competed, really got after it, and the decision was brutal. Myself, Brad Keller, Steele Edwards, Kevin Birch, we were locked in that conference room almost till midnight, just crunching stats and looking at video and going over all our different thoughts on how we could put this team together. And the guys made it really tough on us by just working hard and being great teammates. So in the end, we picked 12 guys and 4 alternates that we're really excited about. We have a nice mix of physicality, a bunch of ball control, and a bunch of hybrid guys, some pins that can do some different things. So we're toying around with some different ideas, playing guys left and right, some different lineup options. But yeah, we're really excited to get started with the training process and get down to Cuba and compete.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about the 12 players and the team in particular, but before I do that, I do want to ask you about the tryout process because, as you said, it was grueling, a short time. When you have a tryout process like that, what are you doing as a coach? Or is it more drill-based? Is it more, scrimmage 6-on-6? What type of drills or stuff are you doing to determine what team is best?
Yeah, I mean, it was 99% playing. Typically on these things you have more time. We had some different constraints put on us, so the time was really boiled down. But yeah, we just got after it and let them play it. I think the first day we might have played, sort of a modified serve and then a bounce ball like out of system, so there was more touches. And we took some stats and we said, you know what, we just really want to play 6-on-6. So with the 24 guys, we broke up into 2 courts and said, hey, we're just going to play. And I think the rest of the 4 sessions, we just played 6-on-6 volleyball. We modified some things. We had some focus on rows 4, 5, and 6, working on our back row stuff. But for the most part, traditional 6-on-6 volleyball, and just took a ton of stats, and the coaches all walked around and took different notes and just kept meeting and banging our head against the wall and trying to figure out who was going to help us in different ways. But yeah, it was a lot of just straight-up competition because that's what we're going to need to see down in Cuba, who can play.
Yeah. Now, for your team comprised of high school players, so for the average, college volleyball fan, they may not be familiar with the name. So, give us 1 or 2 players on the roster who, could see a lot of playing time and make a big impact for your team down in Cuba at Norseca's.
That's a really good question. I'll tell you, it's difficult to say because these guys are so young, and part of the hard part about the trial process is that some trainings, guys had really high numbers, and some guys, they're a little more erratic. One of the guys that really impressed us from the most consistent standpoint was Brandon Browning. Just really consistent guy, had really nice passing numbers, hit for a real nice percentage. He's a guy that we think could have a nice impact down there. And then a guy from the East Coast, Devin Jocelyn, had a really nice tryout. We played him both on the left side and the right side. His passing numbers were pretty strong and did a nice job hitting. I think physically, Jalen Jasper is one of the most physical guys we have in the group, touching almost 12 feet. His physicality is going to be something pretty special to watch when we get down there. Sam Lewis, another very physical athlete in the middle that we're really excited about. So those are some of the names that we're excited about. But honestly, all 12 guys have the potential to make a huge impact once we get down there.
And, like you said, it's a short time. I know you probably are going to get a little bit more time training with them, but how do you go about determining a starting lineup at this point?
That's a really good question. The next week, we really have to start doing a good job of training the guys and putting in the systems. Steele Edwards did a really nice job last night, sort of putting the offensive system in place. He's our offensive coordinator. And then tomorrow, Brad Keller, our defensive coordinator, is going to put in the defensive system. And it's just a balance of putting these systems in and starting to teach these guys, but also taking a ton of stats and video and having them compete and seeing what lineups are going to work best. I think we have some different options with some different pin guys, and so we're going to start taking some stats. And, I think we'll go down there with Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C, and then see once we start competing against real teams, who plays well under pressure, where we go, and I think that's when we'll start to see who's going to come out on top and who's going to play the most.
Yeah. And Coach, I'm sure it's an exciting time right now to get your team together, but I'm sure probably one of the least enjoyable experiences of this process is telling some of the guys who worked hard in the gym that, they just didn't make the roster. And I want to ask you, because you've, been around the block before, you've done this, how does that process work? Do you have a one-on-one conversation with those guys who get cut? How do you handle that process?
I got to say, Vinny, that's the most difficult thing with this whole process, because some of these guys, I've coached Future Select. I've seen them since they were 10, 11 years old, come through the pipeline and just work so hard and just improve and get so much better. And for a lot of these guys, volleyball is their life. And so to a coach, that's one of the most exciting things you can see when a young kid is so dedicated to volleyball. And to have to say, hey, I'm sorry you didn't make this team, you have to go home, it's brutal. I mean, there was, guys were fighting back tears, and it was really emotional, and it was hard for us because we really care about these guys and what they've put forward. So, yeah, it's a one-on-one meeting with the coaches. Each guy, we had 24 meetings that night, so we went till almost 1 o'clock in the morning. Each guy came in the conference room, and if they were going to make the team, we told them. If they were going to be an alternate, we told them. And if they were not selected, we had to tell them. And for the guys that didn't make it, it's probably a little bit longer conversation with some feedback and said, hey, here's where we think you came up a little bit short. Here's where some guys performed a little better in certain areas. Here's some stats and some things you can work on. Because the reality is the Norseca year is a qualifying year for the World Championships next year. And every year we've seen guys not make the Norseca team, come back, work hard, and make the World Championship year. I know Brad keeps talking about Kyle Ensing's a great example last year. Didn't make the Norseca team 2 years ago. Came back, not only made the World Championship, but was a huge part, one of the biggest offensive scorers at World Championships. And so those stories happen. Matt Anderson didn't make his Norseca year 1 year, and obviously he's on the national team right now. So hopefully those meetings are a big catalyst and a motivating factor for these guys to go back and keep working hard. And actually, there's a great opportunity for these guys. Coach Brad Keller is going to be the head coach for I don't know what we're calling it yet exactly, but it's going to be some sort of boys' youth national training team. All these guys, whether they make this team or not down to Cuba, are invited down to Florida for High Performance Championships, July 14th to the 24th, to be a part of the next training block cycle to get ready for World Championships. So we hope all these guys will consider doing that, because we want to move forward. Obviously, we have a tournament next week, but we have goals for the following year, and we want everyone involved in the pipeline to keep moving forward.
Yeah. And, Coach, looking ahead at Norseca's, I know it's a little difficult because you probably don't know a whole lot about the teams you're going to be facing, but just having been around the block before, what's the level of play that you're expecting down in Cuba from your opponents?
It's pretty varied depending on the different teams, And obviously, my only reference point being with the junior national team, and that's, watching some film and stuff like that. Certain countries, obviously Cuba, we think not only being the host country, is probably going to be the most talented. And they're going to be very good. Cuba's always extremely physical. The physical talent they have down in that region is just unbelievable. So we expect them to be our top competition. And then after that, teams like Nicaragua. There's always teams down there that play well, have good ball control, but usually don't have the same kind of physicality as some of the other teams. I mean, thankfully, I don't think Canada's going to be there. They're usually a pretty physical team, so I'm not sure we have to deal with them. But yeah, I would say probably the biggest threat is going to be Cuba, but every team is good down there. When you get to this level of competition, every team is good, extremely well trained. Some of these countries are doing a much better job, having better coaches at the younger levels. So we expect it to be a battle pretty much every step of the way.
And Coach, I do want to ask, because obviously volleyball isn't played in a vacuum, and it's kind of an interesting time in the U.S.-Cuban relationship. What's your thoughts about playing down there, and, have any players or parents expressed any concerns about this tournament being held in Cuba? And how have you handled that as a coach, if they have?
No, actually, no one's expressed any concerns. Actually, a lot of the parents are pretty excited. They want a chance to come down and be a part of it and support their sons, and also get a chance culturally to experience Cuba. I think we're pretty excited. I mean, not a lot of Americans have had an opportunity to travel to Cuba, and so we're pretty excited about that. And we're looking at it as an opportunity to be ambassadors, not just for USA Volleyball, but for the United States of America, and be one of the few people that hopefully these Cuban folks get a chance to meet and just spread some good, positive energy about what Americans, who we are, and how gracious and humble we are, and how much we appreciate the hospitality that they're going to show us. Our men's national team, I don't know if you know, just went down to Cuba a few weeks ago, and I had a chance to talk to John Spraw and Mike Wall and some of the staff that went down there, and they said it was fantastic. They said the Cuban hosts were just amazing. They took so much time to make sure that the Americans were well taken care of, and it was just a really nice opportunity to connect with these people that for so long, politically, we've been separated from But in actuality, so much of that political stuff happens behind closed doors, and when you get the people in front of each other, we're all people. We all care about each other and want to make everyone have a good experience. So we're pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be a new experience for all of us, and we can't wait to get going.
All right, Coach, and final question, and we'll let you go on this. Can you talk a little bit about your assistant coaching staff that you've assembled? And in particular, was there any other reason you hired Kevin Birch besides the fact that everywhere he goes, he wins a championship?
No, that was the main reason. Yeah, I mean, I got to say, this assistant coaching staff is just, well, I shouldn't say assistant coaching staff. This coaching staff that I'm lucky enough to be a part of is just amazing. And, USA Volleyball has a whole host of coaches that are extremely talented and, all add a lot of things to their programs. But these guys, when I got the opportunity to work with them, it was just unbelievable. I mean, Brad Keller is the associate head coach for this program. He's the assistant coach at UCLA. Just one of the best in the business, and he's just such an amazing presence in the gym. He speaks just so well. He's so passionate. It's just been fantastic. I've been friends with him for a long time, but to get a chance to work with him in this context has been just outstanding. Theo Edwards, another one from Cal State Northridge, just such an even keel, calm, just direct force. His voice is so clean when it comes out. He did such a nice job yesterday explaining the offense to the guys. He's been a great balance to this staff. And then, like you said, Kevin Birch wins a national championship everywhere he goes. I think it's 6 or 7 in a row. It's pretty unbelievable. So, unfortunately, this is not a national championship, but we hope his luck will come with him and take us down to a NORCECA championship. But that guy's fantastic, too. I mean, the amount of data he had to crunch through. We were videotaping one court so he could data volley the other, and then at night crank through and data volley that court, so we had numbers in the morning to meet with. And now we've given him a little bit of a break from the data volleying. He's jumped in, he's coaching, he's already made a huge impact, giving guys feedback and changing things on serving and passing. So the staff is amazing. We have such a good job working with the guys, and we have a blast hanging out with each other. So I couldn't be happier with the group that we get a chance to work with.